Hello everyone, and we are back. I don't know why I always seem to jump into the frame. Wow, but hello, yes, it's me again, Squibs. I've had a bit of a haircut, as you can see. I don't know I'm starting with hair, but you know, get the priorities straight. I mean, the next thing I'm actually going to talk about is the plague in the world. So I probably should start with that, have a bit of discretion. Um, and yeah, the world's a bit of a mess right now, actually. It's a bit quite sad. Um, yeah, so sorry if that's affected anyone, primarily. But regarding that, I am actually it sets some about it set back some of my plans. You see, um, what being there's a travel ban and things are closed down and stuff. So a lot of my things have been pushed back, if you will. So hopefully we will still be doing them. At some point. Some of them are sort of seasonal topical, so we might have to sort of amend them a little bit. But there's plenty of stuff coming in the running, okay? But I'm for this next month, you're going to get an extra bit of a season thing, um, an extra season, and I'm going to put a bonus episode in as well. So instead of getting 4 every week, three, three every week, you're going to get 4 an extra. That's how maths works, and we're going to continue to talk about maths now, okay? Uh, but I wanted to start. I was going to start. Hey there, don't swear. Hey there, pushing slides or something. But I probably shouldn't even say that. I'm not even going to make any jokes about the sheer amount of fans that I've been getting and all the mail. I'm never going to have a PO box. I don't want any mail. I have an email maybe. Well, you can't hurt me or something much or something. I don't know. Anyway, so the topic today is interesting to me because it sort of hurt my brain a little bit, but I've only got a small brain, so it's not that hard to sort of go. I don't know. I love the words. That's the capacity of my mind. Anyway, so it's kind of interesting, and being if you're interested in art, science, maths, life, spirituality, any of these things, it sort of will be an interest to you. But otherwise, click onto the next video and, I'm not actually going to be able to hold this. I have to put this on the little stand where it is. Let me just stand up and find a stand. Sorry, a bit rude. But yeah, what the subject is today is phi, the number phi, the Fibonacci sequence, the spiral that we see some people, crackpots crack on about. Now, before I go any further, because you're thinking, yes, you're getting into sort of mad person territory here. Not that we're not already completely mad. Also, did I mention I've got a haircut? Yeah, it's a bit of a mess still, so I have sort of messed up, but it's also a little bit better. Don't know if we can see, sort of clean. Hopefully, it's a bit nicer to look at. But anyway, so phi, favoured by lunatics. Okay, so for a long time, I didn't really have much time for it because I thought, I was a bit skeptical, and people would say, "Oh, it's the sequence of like life itself." Two hands. So hey, look at me, no hands. Look, Mum, I'm on TV. Right, and I was like, "It can't be the case. There's got to be way more diversity. There's got to be more things to it. But what if everything is balanced off of it? And so anyway, there's me. I'm looking into art. Sorry if this is all a bit over the shop. There's me. I'm looking into art. I'm studying art, okay, because I wanted to get into art school. I didn't. Okay, that's long story short, I didn't. Um, but anyway, so I'm researching these artists and I'm looking into Baroque art because I think one, we had to potentially study it. There's a lot in there. It's kind of irking me, whatever. There's one. I had to be studying it, and two, because my dad put me onto it one time, and there was this artist, right, called Michelangelo Murcia de Caravaggio, right? Phenomenal artist. Lots of people really favoured him and started like copying off him. He was like really quite out there. He was a Catholic as well, funny enough, like myself. I'm not going to tell you the other piece of information because I've just doxed myself there. So probably have to fucking as well. Probably have to bleep that some way. Right. Anyway, so I've probably just ruined the video. I think I might have ruined the video. He's got the same birthday as me. He's got the same birthday as me, which I thought was a bit strange. Anyway, so he's a Catholic and he believes in the Catholic Reformation. I think, I don't know where he's from. I think he's from Italy. I believe, maybe something like that. And he studied art to um, bring information to people who can read and all this sorts of things. And he wanted to do things for free, and he wanted to work for the church. Well, I didn't do things for free. He did get paid. He got paid by the church, but his belief system was about for like public domain and all this sorts of thing. And I think it was before or the same time as the Rococo stuff, which was like all these posh people having elaborate pearly buildings, right? And he was more like gritty, I guess. And he was like, so he had this movement called the Dark Pearl, I think it was called, which might be where Pirates of the Caribbean, the Black Pearl comes from. This Baroque is what Baroque means. Anyway, so he has all these genius paintings, right? And they're really dark. They're like proper, really seriously quite dark paintings, like literally quite dark. And you look at them, and they sort of open up to you, right? Incredible pieces. And anyway, so him and some other people, he inspired some other people. One of them is called Peter Paul Rubens. Okay. Now all these people. I think I don't know. I don't really know my art periods, but this is like a Gothic revival piece thing. I hope my phone doesn't die. My phone is going to die. This is like a Gothic revival. Okay, sorry, we're going into a bit of art history, I guess. So the Goths were, as I might have said before, anti-Roman-esque. So I don't know what I'm going with that bit, but you got the sort of Renaissance people who are all into the light and stuff, and you had the Baroque people basically who are into the darkness and stuff like this. Anyway, all of these people, all of these artists from whatever field and background you're coming from, right? We're all obviously into like astronomy, science, maths, literature, all these sorts of things, mathematics as well. So they were quite smart people, and they were tying a lot of this information into their pictures. And when I'm learning this, I'm like, wow, okay, this is actually quite a lot to take in here. And remember, I think we talked about before, like how if you can't take something from art, it's really art sort of thing. Maybe just sort of digest it and move on. But these things have like a ton of hidden stuff in it, motifs and all these sorts of things. Just something to take away with. Anyway, so one of them is phi dynamics, which many people believed and many artists believe to be the perfect ratio, the most beautiful thing to look at, the most jarring thing. So even now, where I'm sort of like on a slant, right? So the way I've broken frame, I haven't done this intentionally, but they say there's a bit of an offset with sort of thing. So in the future, when they're like, "Whoa, we're going to pick apart the sacred geometry and this kind of thing," I guess they will. No, I haven't actually intentionally done that, but I do like a bit of asymmetry. I do like a bit of asymmetry, yeah, and all this sort of thing. But anyway, so they incorporated this thing, and there's literal, I don't know what they call it, dynamics. Sorry, I did actually stop doing. Well, I still do it, but not like that, not classical stuff, and I never really did it. But there's something the way that they break up the frame, so there'll be sections and height and depth and all these sorts of things. It's called something, and in one of these Peter Paul Rubens pictures, it was phi dynamics, and I was like, "What is this phi number?" So I started looking it up, and it's the sequence, right? Essentially, it was a ratio between two numbers. I think it was like 2 plus 2 to the ratio of 1.1 or something like that. Okay, or it's like 1 A plus B ratioed by A over B. I think it is, maybe. I think. And what it essentially was, it creates the sequence, right? So it's 1, then 1.1, then 2, then 4 or something. I don't know. I can't remember. And you also get these other numbers. Now, if you divide those numbers, I should have structured for this more, but we're getting into the phi thing now. Okay. If you divide those two numbers, you get two sequences or two values. One is 1.666666 recurring, and another one is 1.18 something, I think. And when I saw that, right, I was thinking, that's kind of strange. Why did you get two different values and sort of sorts of things? And it started seeing that all these like numbers didn't seem to actually not add up, but they were sort of irrational, whatever. Now, I'm no mathematician, as you can tell, so all of what I'm about to say to me, it's more of a question than it is a theory or whatever. But I guess you'd say it's my theory of how this stuff works. So anyway, I noticed that there's this value, right? And I think, I don't know if I put myself into it or I noticed something in it, but there was this shape, right? This shape particularly, right? Because weirdly enough, right? You've got these two lines, right? The greater line, okay, and the smaller line, okay. Now potentially, now this would be weird, and I don't know if it's true, but the thumb and the finger are near enough almost the value of phi. So us humans being respectively one of the only animals with thumbs, you know, it would beg the question that maybe there was not only a creator like in the universe, but maybe even a designer, like we've been potentially cultivated, which we might get onto in these later fields of videos. Okay, if you're interested in this sort of idea, and this might even tie in with some of the Baroque and Renaissance ideas of satyrs and mystic creatures and all these sorts of weird things. So we're getting into a sort of a fine art thing here, but it's not really. It's more of me from an onlooking perspective than it is like I'm telling you this, right? But anyway, so I noticed there's this shape, okay, right? Or at least I figured it was, because I think what I was doing is I actually measured out these things, these pieces of stick, because I'm going to try and explore this number or this shape or this ratio and see what it does and see what I can make with it. Because I noticed there's a shape, and it is, if you're screaming at your TV right now, it is actually the stonemason shape, the Freemasons, and also in that game, the Assassin's Creed or whatever. So I was like, well, that's quite interesting. And one thing led to another, and I was thinking about this quite a few days, and I can't remember obviously my complete full plan of how I was thinking these things, but I realised that maybe there's something to it, and I'm going to try and work it out about the difference between 1.666 and 1.18 something, right? Because that's what you do when you've got nothing to do and you're insane. Pretty much you need to do an art. I thought maybe, because if you plot these, right, it's the spiral, okay? The Fibonacci spiral, as it's called. And if you plot the little squares, apparently it values to the sequence of the numbers going up as well, maybe. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So potentially those squares, what I'm saying is the value of the spiral is 1.666666666, or this is the thing, 1.18, yeah, right? And maybe the difference is dimension. Okay. So I was thinking, what if there's like there's a dimensional thing to this? And this is actually from a later thought as well I had about the number sequence. So I was thinking the difference between 1.66666, 1.66666 could be a flat spiral. 1.18 so on could be a three-dimensional spiral sort of thing. But if you were to look at it head on, it would have the same value as the other spiral, okay? And maybe that difference, if we were to work out, because I'm not a mathematician, but I probably could work out if I really focused on it, I guess. It could be phi again, maybe, because you know the squares, you got the squares and they go up, so maybe the difference would be like just a three-dimensional square thing. So that would be something for us to potentially look into. But anyway, so I start thinking about numbers themselves, and I'm like, why do we have 10 numbers? You know, why don't we have, you know, more numbers? Do you know what I mean? So if they were just units and we just name the units, at what point do we stop and we go, okay, yeah, we've got 10 numbers now, or 10 numbers, right, or 9 numbers. Let's start me over again, do it again. You know, why don't we have more? You know, I was like, maybe there's a reason to this, because if you notice in the if you notice in the sequence, there's obviously there's not inaccuracies, but there's like it's hard to value these points. And I was thinking maybe these are the like actual how numbers like realize themselves, and then we've just attributed these units to these other numbers, and maybe this is actually the origin of value in a way. And I was like, okay, so maybe if this is how the universe is actually sort of bonded together, and it's sort of like the laws of the universe, or like how, because things are apparently done on waves and stuff, aren't they? So I was thinking maybe, you know, this is actually like, you know, just a pattern of the universe and how it all like, runs together. So anyway, I start thinking about numbers, right? And I'm thinking, as I'm working it out, and once again, I can't remember what my thought pattern is, and if only at the time I had a camera, I would have actually recorded all this stuff, because I would look proper mad. But I realised, yeah, that maybe the numbers in the world, sort of like atoms or something, bonding together, are actually realising each other and becoming greater, right? So maybe two isn't just two things separately, but it's actually one thing combined, right? So I'm thinking, right, I'll use my hands, here we go. So this is, I think, the video we called Counting with Numbers, which seems a bit strange, doesn't it? So if you imagine my hand, this is unit number 1, and we're floating around, and we are in a, well, one-dimensional, one-dimensional, so yeah. This would be, we're flying along, we'd be like Mario. You know when Mario turns and looks at the camera and you can't see him? We're like this. Everything's floating around in the universe and there's hydrogen everywhere, but it doesn't know it exists yet, right? And but yeah, look, so it's everything's floating around, it doesn't really exist, right? Okay, until boom, they bump into each other and suddenly, you know, things have got existence in this one-dimensional world. Now at another point, another atom of dependable size bumps into it, and bumps into each other. They are going to exist potentially in ratio to the dimension, maybe, and that would create potentially 1.1. So you got 1 and then 1.1 here. I'm thinking, which would create another dimension, but it wouldn't exist yet, okay? And then, right, if another things which have also actualized themselves, or whatever, maybe something like that, they bump into each other again, because obviously all these things have got ratio and value and all these sorts of things, whatever. They bump into each other and it creates this new number, and suddenly there's this new dimensional field. So what I'm being saying is, right, as numbers are progressing, dimensions also progressing. So there's not just numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but it was like when I was applying them, I was doing it on a piece of paper as well, and I'm sure you can as well. It was like 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, and all of them, there was like interdimensional like workings of these numbers and stuff. I'm just put this camera up a little bit, potentially, so you can work this out yourself. You can let me know if someone steals my theory or whatever. But then what it was to do then after is you could actually bring those number values back into previous dimensions, and they would actually have different values themselves. Anyway, so we've got this next number, right? We'll call it number 2. Pardon me. Number 2, but also the number 4's here. So we've got this number, it's the number 5. And the funny thing is, all of these numbers were phi at any point as well. So once you keep going, you get to 12, but rather it's not just 12, it's 1.1 or 1.1, 1 to the power of 2. Okay, so it's actually like, it becomes like, it's like an ace or whatever. Now if you play cards or whatever, the ace is 1, but it's also 11, isn't it? And also I think that might even have, like, the ace of spades might even have a actual thing to do with like phi and factors and all these sorts of things. But so potentially these ideas in maths and science might have actually just been lost or something, and these could just be ancient ideas or whatever. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, so we've got the shape, right? Now this is where the fun science part, right? This is where the interesting part comes in, right? Because now if you imagine this dimension, now if this angle as well, because this would be a new thing, which would be of my own accord, if the angle would be phi as well, and that's how all this stuff interacts and all this sorts of work. Because when you look at the Fibonacci stuff and all this sort of stuff, they don't talk about dimension. My dimensional numbers thing is my theory. So yeah, all of these ideas are mine. So if they turn out to be right, I'm Mr. Right. So we have this shape, right, floating through time space. Now, if you notice, on one dimension, yeah, we've got, I'll try to do this, then equilateral triangle, okay, which is interesting. Do you remember when everyone was doing that in 2012 or whatever? Maybe they're all onto something, you know, and maybe they were just saving it for me to register or whatever. No, interesting. So on one angle, you've got an equilateral triangle. My hands aren't doing it to you justice, but um, I think you should have an equilateral triangle. When I did it with sticks, could be wrong. but, no, anyway, equilateral triangle, okay? And on another dimension, if you turned it, you have got a square. How mental is this? Right, so you've got 1, you've got 2, you've got 4, and you've got, on another plane, you've got 3 and 4. And basically, so if you've got all these values, right, the next one, I think, would potentially be a 3D shape. So you could have 3D existences of 5, right? And then you've got 4D shapes, so that's like multiple possibilities, right, of other shapes. Okay, so then you've got the 4th dimension, right? And then so we go through 5, which 5 would be at this point a 4-dimensional number, because I think they just got tracked back. So 3 was a 2D number, stuff like this. Maybe. So you got 5, right? Which was there's a couple different variations of 5, and then 6, which was, I was thinking, these 2 triangles. I think we said in another video, 2 triangles laying over each other, which creates the Star of David, or the Kundalini, or is that something else? It sounds like a fighting thing. The Cambanara or something. Sorry, bad with words. Well, not bad with words. I just haven't. Not too familiar. There's a Jewish mysticism thing, isn't there? Of the spirit, all this spiritual geometry thing, yeah. So this number 6, right? I'm thinking these 2 values, and we've said them before in other videos, that over the top of these 2 triangles over the top of each other. That central, sorry for saying that. That central middle part, all on the outside, is like this fractal, and this fractal of number 6. Okay, and the next one up, obviously because there's dimension involved, I was thinking that could be a good representation of time, and because of the 4 dimension, all these sorts of things are sort of appearing and disappearing off of each other, and there's all these strange things. And then where I was working it out, they were sort of skipping about, because as you notice, it went 1, 2, then 4, then 3, yeah, because it's the dimension thing. Maybe it was a bit like that with the other numbers. So it got to, sorry, I'm all over the place. I really should have written something, prepared something for this, and if there is any merit to this, because this could all be absolute hogwash, you know. But if there is any merit to this, I will try and actually work out, because I used phi, because I was like, okay, I think I'm really getting somewhere with this. Sorry, just pause here. I'm going to try and work something else out, okay? And I was looking at pi, yeah, and you know, pi goes on for like ages, doesn't it? And I was like, what if there's another way to work out pi that's more accurate? Okay, and you might think this far out, that's a stupid idea. But why is it stupid idea? You know what I mean? Because there's inaccuracies in the numbers apparently. So why wouldn't there be a more focused number, a more accurate number, a smaller number of pi, or longer? I don't know. Didn't know how it would work. But I thought, sniff, what seemed to be missing in pi was the center of the pie, so to speak. Not really, so to speak, but genuinely, the center of pi, in my eyes, is missing. Now, people, let me get a piece of paper. There's paper everywhere, but it's all got notes on it. Paper. Now, coming from an engineering background myself, okay, you not only do you use pi, I think, and radius, diameter, and circumference. Okay, so you use all of these things in just engineering, pipe fitting, and all sorts of stuff. Right now, at the moment, the pi is worked out at the ratio between the circumference and the diameter. Okay. Yes, right. Which is fair enough, you know. That's the value of a circle, you said. Right, so this is these you might have seen this before, so you've got circumference, I think, right? Maybe I probably get this wrong now. I look like a proper diameter, radius, I think, right? Radius Technically all that, they don't, I guess. But here's the thing, right? To establish any of these values, right? What is it? How do you work up pi again? Let me work it up, look it up again. So anyway, so the swearing. How do you work up pi? Now what I'm saying is, to establish the values in the center. Okay, circumference by diameter. Right. Okay. I'm getting somewhere now. So to establish pi currently, they say you divide the circumference, which is the length of it all the way around, by the diameter, which is the length of it across, okay, which would give you this value. Now, if you were to measure something like that, you'd only get the crust, so to speak. You'd get the crust and you'd get a line. Now, that would be a pipe. That wouldn't be a circle, would it? So what I was thinking is, we're missing out all of these values from the inside in. So I was saying somehow we would need to take all these infinite ratios to establish the diameter, because technically, if there wasn't any center, you wouldn't have a diameter, would you? You'd just have this value here on the circumference, which would technically be negligible, because it would be nothing, wouldn't it? Because you wouldn't be measuring it. So to get all these values, you'd not only have to do the ratio between here to here, but you'd have to do the ratio between here, all of it on the inside, to establish this line. So that was my thinking. Now, if you took all of these values from the outside to the very center, infinitely, and divided them by each other, you would technically get the same answer, potentially, as the outside value, wouldn't you? But, you know, it'd be more accurate. So suddenly I'm like, yes, I'm getting somewhere. So now how do we establish this, right? We can potentially, there's probably a few ways we can do it, but nobody has. Now what my idea was we actually take the area, so we put a square around it, because obviously circles fit in squares. Right, we take the area of the circle and we divide it by this, by 4 or something, I can't remember, I got the actual equation somewhere. And I did that, and I figured, right, because this is obviously there's a right angle, you can actually work out this line easily. And then I was thinking, how do we do this? Work out this shape here, because I was thinking, you know, you need pi to actually know what that arc is or whatever. So I was thinking, maybe because this is a right angle and this is a curve, hopefully that would actually be also into dimensional with phi, right? So what I did is I replaced the curve for phi and this angle here, and I took that away by 4 to the thing, and funny enough, I got an answer which was particularly similar to pi, but closer. And I actually got 2 different values, because obviously phi is a bit of a pickle or whatever. But yeah, I got 2 values, and both of them, one was above and one was below what pi was, but it was pretty much like the same. And I was like, and I'm talking like 3 decimal places or something, close. And I was like, well, I've done something here. And then I tried to message my brother, who's a mathematician, who's like, no, because at the time I was a bit like crazy, not sleeping a lot. I say that. So he wasn't really listening to any of it. But you know, if people are thinking actually, you know, there's some merit to this, because you can't establish any of these values without area. So if we would like to look into this area idea, and you would actually like to recognize me as a mathematical genius, then we could do this. But yeah. So anyway, I did that in about 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, back to phi. So right, I'm going to take this start because it's making my colouring dark. Go on. Here we go. Right, what colour would we like, people? Should we put yellow for yellow? Orange. Here we go. How's that look? Right, should we try? Just sort of creamy sort of thing. Right, it's not bad. Right, we'll see this. Where were we? So we're going through the sequences of numbers. We'll get to 7, which is this weird fractal number, okay? And then you bring them back and they sort of simplify them a little bit, but they're still ridiculously confusing, because at this point we're talking like we're doing like the fifth dimension and stuff, and my brain was quite hurt. And I think we've talked about this in a previous video about, you know, sort of giving me a bit of a headache by this point. But then what I realised is it went from 7 to 11, I think, and then from 11 to 12. And by the time I got to 12, it was sort of like, it was just loads of phi again, and all of these numbers were sort of like inside of each other at the same time and stuff ish, because I think, yeah, if they were just getting more complex, they also still were bound by the same sort of existence in themselves. And by the time I got to 12, it was like all of them together in one sort of thing, just looking simplified again. And, you know, if you imagine like colors, even once it gets to a certain point, it repeats itself, and we're into sort of infrared parameters at this point. So it goes back to being red again, but it's like, you know, to the power of 2 or something ish, maybe. But then I was thinking, where's 9, where's 10? And what I realized was maybe they were, as I said in other videos, my head is really odd in this light, subsidiaries of the other numbers. So you had to actually like sort of disconnect them. This doesn't make it matter either. You had to sort of take them away from their existence, or sort of like crop the number almost. So imagine like the life is phi or something. Then when we harvest it, you know, it turns back into a unit, right? Which you can actually count. So, and I was thinking, well, that sort of fits in with the thing. So 9, I don't know if that's a 9. That's a 9, I don't know. Don't have to think about that. 9 is sort of like a little bit cut off of the 8. I was like, oh, interesting, might be a thing. 10 is obviously a 1 and a 0. So where would you get this 0 thing from? And, you know, I was thinking potentially, you know, if you cut this plant down, it turns from, you know, an infinite growing thing to a value which you can actually like weigh and measure and like count and pardon me, all this sort of thing. So I was like, maybe that's what it is to do with it. And then I was thinking, there you go. Potentially, that's the difference between cent, like imperial metric. You know, everything in metric is measured in tens, isn't it? Everything is imperial is measured in 12s and weird fractions and all these sorts of things. And then I was like, oh, well, I've always wondered why the imperial system is in such strange indices, I think is the word, isn't it? Potentially, you know, and I could be wrong again, but maybe those values actually have a more accurate value to do with life, and, you know, maybe they work well better with nature, but they're sort of more complex to understand. And then because you've got 2 different clocks, and I'm looking into clocks as well, and obviously the clock we use is in 12 hours, 60 seconds, all these sorts of things, and it has a sort of value to itself, okay? But you could, and there has been, a French clock which is just a clock of tens and tens and tens, and we've stuck with the 12 clock because it's just what we know, and apparently it's better for the brain and mind and all these sorts of things, they say. So that's the difference maybe between imperial and metric, and how phi works with the universe, maybe. And you know, apparently it adds some balance to how nature actually understands itself and exists in itself. So I'm cracking my neck a bit. And yeah, maybe if you were smart enough to know this as an organism, and you knew how these things in life worked, you could actually bind and create a creature, you know. So maybe, you know, in evolution, right, this is what I've been saying before, the existence of evolution not only potentially could happen in nature, but if you were smart enough to do it, why couldn't you engineer it? Honestly, it would make just as much sense, isn't it? Now, if we can make medicines, and if we can make creatures, and if we can rear dogs and all these other creatures, you know, who's to say that we wouldn't be able to engineer life, you know? So where I'm saying that cultivation isn't not real, right? No, where I'm saying that the creation isn't not real, you know, natural growth. I'm always just saying how much of the world isn't not actually made by creatures, you know, be it people or was there history before history? So that's what we're going to be coming on to next, and looking to fire. And it doesn't matter who you are, you can understand this stuff. That's what the Baroque people say. You don't need to read to understand patterns. And if you can understand patterns, you can bring new life to them. Okay. And how much of this stuff has been destroyed? Like the gardens of bloody Gethsemane or whatever, which I think is actually an actual thing, right? And the great Alexander's shaft. All these things which get knocked down, they will be realised again. Because if these things are bound in time and science and stuff, there's no reason that we won't be discovering them again. It doesn't mean that they haven't been discovered before. And we could be unlocking loads of things in the secrets of time. And whenever they do have wars and stuff, they do like to destroy things. So yeah, I'm sure you can see what I'm saying. And look into this sort of stuff, because it will vastly enrich your life. And why wouldn't it? So thank you for joining me on that. Hopefully it's not too fragmented and all over the shop. And also hopefully you like my haircut. Thanks. And I don't know, tell me if there's any merit to my pi stuff and the phi stuff and all the other stuff, combined stuff. Thank you.